Lord of the Mysteries is a pretty complex series. The first novel is over 1,000 chapters long, and with the Dongwa coming out, they obviously had to cut some content in order for the show to not be incredibly long. Given this, it makes sense that there would be a decent amount of people who don't really know what the plot is about, or what is really happening in the story. This video is being made so that the episodes are broken down into bullet points to make it easier to understand. There's definitely plenty of info that I'm leaving out, but this is a general summary of what's happened so far. Keep in mind that I'm not exactly an expert on this novel. I've only read up to chapter 175, but I can still give a decent perspective on what's been happening in the anime so far. I know that it's called Dongwa, but for clarity's sake and for, convenience, I'm just going to be calling it anime, and because I just want to. At the beginning of each episode of Lord of the Mysteries, we're given a brief explanation of what the power system for this series is like. So I have some bullet points that I just want to go through really quick to make sure everybody's caught up to speed on this. Beyonders are people who have consumed potions that grant them unique abilities. These potions are part of what's called the Path of Divine. For each path, there exists 22 pathways, each with unique titles such as Corpse Collector, Assassin, Spectator, Seer, among many others. Each pathway has levels called sequences, and the weakest is sequence 9 and the highest is sequence 0, so sequence 0 would be the most powerful. Think of the pathways as a class and the sequence as a power level, so there are 22 different classes to choose from. Some of the pathways are owned by secret organizations, which makes getting potions for that path somewhat difficult. Each sequence has a unique name separate from the pathway name, except for sequence 9. For example, Seer is the name of sequence 9 of the Seer pathway, and Clown is the name of sequence 8 of the Seer pathway. Low sequence is sequences 9 through 8, mid sequence is 7 through 5, and high sequence is 4 through 0. High sequence Beyonders are also known as demigods. Each sequence gains new abilities and more power the higher the sequence goes, so leveling from sequence 9 to sequence 8, you gain new abilities and higher power. In order to level up sequences, you need to concoct a potion for that next sequence. There's a risk of losing control of your power and becoming a monster, so the idea is that you'll have to wait a few years to digest the potion completely to avoid this. Leveling sequences takes time, and this will be brought up at a later point. Episode 1, The Fool. The episode starts, and we're shown Doomsday in Tenjin. This is basically just stuff that happens in the future, and honestly, it only confuses people who are watching the first episode without any book knowledge. It's safe to ignore this entire scene for now. Afterwards, we get a glimpse at what is a visual representation of Zhu Minguri's transmigration into the world of Lord of the Mysteries. He wakes up as Klein Moretti, a relatively poor graduate who had just committed suicide by gunshot. His wound heals itself as he remembers various things from Klein's memory. The scene transitions to two men who are conducting a situation report on the deaths of two history graduates named Welch and Naya. These two students were classmates and friends of Klein. It's concluded that their deaths were suicides, with a likelihood of black divination being involved. The two men who are investigating are Beyonders named Dunn Smith and Leonard Mitchell, who are part of an organization called the Nighthawks. The Nighthawks are a faction of Beyonders who work under the Church of the Evernight Goddess to solve supernatural incidents. They then focus their attention on Klein because he's a classmate of the deceased. Klein has no alive parents, and he lives with his siblings named Benson and Melissa. They live in Tenjin, which is a city in Lone Kingdom. Klein reads his personal diary, which holds details about the days surrounding his suicide. It talks about deciphering the first page, and that the notebook they're deciphering is old and belonged to the Antigonus family. The biggest takeaway from this scene is that Klein and his classmates were in possession of the Antigonus family notebook during that time, and had something to do with Hornacchus, which is a mountain range. The final page in Klein's diary reads, "Everyone will die, including me." It's unknown why Klein would have written this at the end of his diary. One CGI door and a quick hiding scene gives us an introduction to Klein's sister, Melissa. After this interaction, Klein thinks about the Antigonus notebook and determines that it must be part of the reason why all of this is happening, as well as wondering if Klein's death was actually a suicide or disguised as a suicide. For now, we aren't meant to know for sure. There's another mystery around his suicide as well, and it's that his sister, who is in the same house as him, didn't bring up hearing a gunshot or any kind of loud noise. Klein recalls the luck enhancement ritual that he performed in China, and decides to try it again to see if that will send him home, since it's the reason why he was sent here in the first place. He goes to buy bread at the order of Melissa, which he actually needs anyways to do the luck enhancement ritual again. During Klein's outing, he noticed that there are some similarities between this world and Earth, such as the Landlord game, the invention of the steam engine, and the tarot cards.
In the original Klein's memories, he knows that these things were invented by a man named Rizal Gustav, who was the emperor of the Indus Empire. Klein determines that Rizal must have also been a transmigrator because of this. Klein is invited by a clown to a performance, where he notices that he's actually being followed by two men, one named Regents, I don't know, who's a member of the Secret Order, and Leonard, one of the two Nighthawks from the beginning of the episode. In order to get away from the people tailing him, Klein goes into a small tent where he's greeted by a fortune teller, who offers him tarot divination. He only agrees because it's free, and the only card that he has time for is the card that represents his state in the present, which is the Fool. This card represents new beginnings, potential for growth, and spontaneity, which perfectly describes Klein's current situation since he's new to this world. The fortune teller is kicked out by the real fortune teller, but despite this, it's said that her divination is accurate. We get small lore dumps every episode, which usually pertain to the content of the episode. For episode 1, we are given the names of the 7 orthodox gods that are recognized in the northern continent. Their names are the Eternal Blazing Sun, the Lord of Storms, the God of Wisdom and Knowledge, the Evernight Goddess, the Earth Mother, the God of Combat, and the God of Steam and Machinery. The ones that are the most important to the story for now are the Evernight Goddess, the Eternal Blazing Sun, and the Lord of Storms. The gods have no known form and are represented by symbols. Klein performs the luck enhancement ritual for a second time by putting bread in 4 corners of his room, staying in the center, and taking 4 steps in a counterclockwise motion in the shape of a square. He then says, "The mortal lord of heaven and earth for blessings. The sky lord of heaven and earth for blessings. The exalted thearch of heaven and earth for blessings. And the celestial worthy of heaven and earth for blessings." At first, nothing happens. Then, Klein goes through excruciating pain and a lot of whispering voices. Then he ends up above a vast, gray fog. It's unknown what this place truly is yet, but it's basically Klein's own domain. We are then shown 2 other people, named Audrey Hall and Alger Wilson, who are summoned to Klein's realm without warning. To them, Klein appears as a large, shadowy figure above them. A large castle or cathedral-like structure is created, which houses a large table with 22 seats. Klein realizes that he can materialize things in this realm. Instead of playing ignorant, he decides that he should push his advantage and act as if he knows what's going on. He puts on the alias of the Fool, which was his card from the tarot divination. He describes the current situation as an attempt of his power, even though he doesn't really know what the Grey Fog is capable of yet. Audrey asks him on how she can become a Beyonder, and Klein has no idea. He correctly assumes that Alger would be able to answer her question. He describes an easy method to becoming one, which is to join a church, then join their organization of Beyonders. He describes them as people who fight the supernatural dangers that grow in the dark. Audrey is more concerned about not losing her freedom, though, since joining a church and the organization of Beyonders would mean rules and regulations would be placed on her and her powers. Alger then tells her that she can seek out royal families or create a potion herself if she's so inclined. Alger then offers her the recipe for 2 different Sequence 9 potions. He tells her that he has the recipes for Sailor and Spectator. Klein is unaware what any of this means, and determines that Sequence 9 is a power level of some kind, which it is. Alger basically holds the gateway to starting the path of a Beyonder, either as a part of the Sailor or Spectator pathways. Audrey then offers Alger Ghost Shark blood in exchange for the recipe, though the details of the deal are not shown in the anime. Klein then wonders if his Grey Fog ability is part of some kind of Beyonder ability, which we don't know if it is yet. Based on Klein's actions and attitude towards the gathering, the others assume that Klein is a powerful being, which he isn't. He's just kind of BSing his way through the whole thing. The point of having these gatherings is that Klein can make deals of information or products with the people he brings to the Grey Fog without exposing his identity, or their identities. Thus, the Tarot Club is born, with Audrey taking the alias Justice and Alger the Hanged Man. Someone knocks at Klein's door, and the meeting ends, not before they agree to have meetings every Monday at 3 p.m. The people that are knocking at Klein's door are shown to be the police, so he quickly hides his gun and diary. After opening a CGI door, the person knocking is shown to be Leonard, who is followed by Dunn. Dunn's eye flashes with a red glow, an indication of his Beyonder powers being active. They do a small interrogation of Klein, most of which Klein doesn't know the answers to, but he does tell them that he knows he attempted suicide by gunshot. Dunn asks Klein to accompany them to meet a psychic expert who will be able to recover his lost memory. The big issue for Klein is that he doesn't want his memories of Earth being exposed, so when a distraction takes their attention, he runs away. A bunch of supernatural things block his path, which eventually leads him back to a carriage, which he finds has Dunn as the driver. Klein wakes up in his room again, as if he had never left. This scene is pretty confusing, since we aren't told that Dunn has the power to drag his targets into dreams without them knowing. The whole police interrogation we just witnessed was a dream, in order for Dunn and Leonard to see what Klein would do. Given the fact that Klein tried to run away from them, it's obvious that he has something to hide. Yet another CGI door opens, revealing Dunn yet again. He reintroduces himself as a Nighthawk instead of a police officer. The psychic expert shows up behind Klein. Her name is Dali Simone. We're shown a visual representation of Klein's memory, where memories of Earth are covered in a gray fog, hiding them from Dali. She briefly interrogates Klein in this dreamlike area, since she can gain true answers from Klein in this state. Klein doesn't really know what happened to them taking his notebook, and the only memory he's able to show Dali is the memory of him committing suicide. Dali's conclusion is that Klein's memories of the notebook and Welch's place have no trace, and that he definitely committed suicide. Dunn explains that Klein is still in danger, and that the Antagonist family notebook is still missing. The police and Nighthawks have plenty of other things to do, so they can't babysit Klein until everything's over. Dunn then offers Klein an opportunity to become a Beyonder and join the Nighthawks. So, the important takeaways for this episode are: Zhu Mingri transmigrated into dead Klein Moretti's body after attempting a luck enhancement ritual. The circumstances surrounding Klein's suicide are unknown, but have something to do with the Antagonist family notebook. Klein has the unknown ability to enter a domain that he can summon control, called the Grey Fog, where he can summon people and have discussions in private. Dunn offers Klein a job as a Nighthawk, where he can become a Beyonder.
Episode 2, Beyonder. The episode starts and we're given a recap of the ending of the last episode. We see an invisible feather fall with a special sound motif in the sounds of writing. Dunn tells Klein that if he wishes to join them, he has to go to Hound Pub and tell the person in charge that he would like to recruit a squad of mercenaries. This dialogue is cut short in the anime, where he is told to go to Hound Pub and talk to Wright. There's also the question of why Dunn would suddenly ask Klein to join the Nighthawks. This is explained in the novel. Basically, he can join as a civilian. They don't just recruit anyone just to become a Beyonder. The reason Klein is offered to become a Beyonder anyways is because he's a history graduate. They need insiders to provide knowledge on things they discover, since asking someone outside of the Nighthawks could lead to secrets being exposed. Klein decides to join, since he can gain more knowledge on mysticism. The idea here is to see if mysticism will help him on his journey back to Earth. Wright takes Klein to an elevator behind a CGI door. He exits another CGI door and ends up in Blackthorn Security Company, which is basically a front for the Nighthawks. Klein talks to Roseanne, who is a clerk in the lobby. She is not a Beyonder. After opening a spinning CGI door this time, she leads Klein to Dunn's office. On their way, we see Nighthawk members Leonard, Royale, Fry, and Kenley. All of them are sleepless except for Fry, who is a corpse collector. They're all Sequence 9 except for Leonard, who is a Sequence 8 Midnight Poet. Klein opens a CGI door and meets with Dunn in his office. Dunn is a sleepless Sequence 7 Nightmare. Klein signs paperwork to become a member of the Nighthawks. Dunn opens a pair of CGI doors, and we're told about the fate that many Nighthawk members go through, which is losing control. Berserk Beyonders end up becoming monsters and are put down. Klein and Dunn briefly talk about the creation myth, which is this world's version of a god who created everything. Dunn explains the basics of pathways and sequences to Klein. The potions are made of Beyonder materials, which are pretty hard to obtain. The Nighthawks have access to 4 different pathways, these being Sleepless, Corpse Collector, Seer, and Mystery Prior. The problem is that for Seer and Mystery Prior, they only have Sequence 9, meaning one wouldn't be able to progress to the next sequence without discovering the recipe for the next potion. They have the full pathway for Sleepless and Corpse Collector, though. I'll briefly explain the powers of each of these pathways at Sequence 9. Sleepless Beyonders do not need much sleep, only about 3 to 4 hours a day. They're more powerful at night, can see in the dark, and can sense dangers in darkness. They have enhanced strength and spirituality. Corpse Collector Beyonders have enhanced physical attributes and lower body temperature, as well as a gloomy presence. They're resistant to decaying, corrosiveness, and cold auras. They typically will not be attacked by undead beings or spirits. They gain knowledge about the weaknesses and characteristics of undead things. Mystery Prior Beyonders can see things not seen to the naked eye, and can see through traps of illusion or dreams. They have to be careful not to pry into things that aren't meant to be seen or heard, as that could lead to losing control. Seer Beyonders gain improved memory and spirituality. They're able to memorize divination and ritualistic magic easier, as well as master tons of different divination methods because of their memory. Seers are able to use spirit vision at its best. The other pathways have some form of spirit vision as well, but way less potent than Seer. Seers can see the aura on people's bodies that can tell them their emotion and health state. They can also see ghosts and can sense danger with their spirituality. A pair of CGI doors closed behind Klein, as Dunn repeats what the founder of the Nighthawks, Archbishop Channis, once said. We are guardians, but also a bunch of miserable wretches that are constantly fighting against threats and madness. Seer and Mystery Prior don't have a lot to offer in terms of combat, but Klein is more interested in mysticism and knowledge, so he focuses his attention on picking Seer or Mystery Prior. It's important to note that a Seer's strength is only found in their knowledge of divination and magic. Klein opens a CGI door to the alchemy room where he meets Old Neil, a Sequence 9 Mystery Prior. Neil shows him notes from Emperor Roselle, who Klein thought was likely a transmigrator in the last episode. In this world, it's believed the unknown symbols Roselle used in these notes are powerful, but Klein immediately recognizes them as Chinese. Klein reads Roselle's notes, where he finds out about the acting method, which is a way to advance sequences quicker. Basically, the idea is to digest the potions, the key is to act the role of the sequence's name. A seer must seek out ways to use their power to see and become a true seer. One big key point, though, is to remember that you're only acting. Being immersed too far in acting can lead to losing control. Roselle expresses regret in not joining the apprentice, seer, or bandit pathways. Both of these bits of information are insanely important and useful to Klein, and influences him into choosing the seer pathway. Neil concocts a potion for Klein, who drinks it after some hesitation. After drinking it, Klein immediately hears whispers of Hornachus and Phlegrea. It's inferred that Hornachus and Phlegrea have some relation to the seer pathway, since Klein hears it immediately after drinking the potion. And we know that Hornachus is a mountain range from the last episode. In order to control his newfound spirituality, Klein is told to imagine a normal thing in this world, as well as something that does not exist in this world. After controlling the potion, Klein is in spirit vision mode, and sees a large pair of eyes behind Old Neil, as well as a silhouette of a person. Neil plays this off as a characteristic of ritualistic magic and hallucinations from overusing spirituality. Klein is able to tap between his eyes to turn spirit vision on and off. Klein is told that he can use cogitation, divination, and dowsing rod seeking. Klein also buys a cane which he will need for dowsing rod seeking. He learns how to do all of this off screen. He's given demon hunting bullets, a badge, and plenty other things. Klein talks to Dunn to show him that he's become a seer. He gets his first month of pay in advance, something that J. Jonah Jameson would never do. He's also warned not to look into things that he's not supposed to see, as it's an easy way to lose control. Dunn tasks Klein with walking back and forth between his house and Welch's house, to see if he can remember the whereabouts of the antagonist family's notebook. Some time passes, and a CGI carriage door opens, revealing Leonard inside. We are once again given a small lore dump, this time about the Lone Kingdom where the story is taking place. The important takeaways for now are that it's a strong nation, it was founded by the Augustus family at the end of the Fourth Epoch, the capital is Backland, where Audrey lives, and the three gods most commonly worshipped here are the Evernight Goddess, the Lord of Storms, and the God of Steam and Machinery. Klein is given a mission with Leonard to rescue a kidnapped boy. Searching for people is something that seers are particularly good at, so that's why Klein is helping. Leonard shows a photo of Elliot, who's the kidnapped boy, and gives Klein a piece of Elliot's clothing as well as a storm amulet that he used to wear. It's not stated in the anime, but in order for Klein's dowsing rod seeking to work, he needs to know what the person looks like and something that they've possessed for a while. Klein repeats Elliot's location 7 times, which is required to divine his location. The cane points them in the direction they're supposed to go until they arrive at the house. They open the house's CGI doors and walk inside. With spirit vision, Klein can see that there are 2 kidnappers and 1 hostage. Leonard is more suited for fighting, since he's a sleepless. He blows the CGI door the hell up, and easily defeats the 2 kidnappers. As Klein helps to get Elliot out of the room, the same invisible feather, musical motif, and writing sound are shown and heard. The 2 kidnappers arise and become one unified monster. Leonard has a brief spar with it, and then it tries to attack Klein. Klein shoots the monster, then it attempts to escape. Leonard is a Sequence 8 Midnight Poet, which allows him to recite different poems with varying effects. The most common poem is one that puts its target to sleep. It goes something like this. Oh, the thread of horror, the hope of crimson cries. One thing at least is certain, that this life flies. One thing is certain, and the rest is lies. The flower that has once bloomed forever dies. They kill the monster, and soon after, Klein hears whispers of Hornachus and Philogrea again. Klein remembers that he's been in this area before, and Leonard is shown to have something move in his shadow, which is immediately suspicious to the viewer. Klein returns home, but finds himself in a dream again. He dreams of a CGI door that opens to a room with his own notebook inside. It flips to the end, with the entry saying, "Everyone will die, including me." Klein wakes up, and upon seeing this, determines that the room that he saw earlier holds a clue to the location of the antagonist's family notebook. In the post-credits scene, Klein is able to afford and move into a better house with his family. The important takeaways from this episode are: we see the feather and hear writing sounds 2 times, which are symbolic for something that we do not know yet. Klein learns the acting method and is influenced by Roselle to choose Seer. Klein sees a pair of eyes behind Old Neil. There seems to be a lot of CGI doors in this episode. Nah, okay. Klein learns how to use various ritualistic magics. Whispers of Hornachus and Philogrea are heard in relation to the Seer potion in the antagonist's family notebook. It's safe to assume that Hornachus and Philogrea are connected to the Seer pathway and the antagonist's family, which are things we did not know were related before. Klein discovers a lead on the antagonist's family notebook. Episode 3, The Notebook. At the very beginning of this episode, Dunn is shown to be interrogating someone at Blackthorn Security Company. This man is Regence from episode 1. In the novel, he breaks into Klein's house where Dunn enters his dream. In the anime, Dunn enters his dream here in the interrogation room after he captures him. The dream shows Regence accidentally selling the antagonist's notebook where it enters the antique market. Regence is a member of the Secret Order, as shown with the tattoo on the back of his neck. He was following Klein to retrieve the notebook, since he knew that Klein was affiliated with Welch, who bought the notebook from someone else after it was negligently sold. The man just kind of dies afterwards, and the conclusion Dunn and Leonard come to is that the Secret Order is looking for the notebook, and that they'll send more people to find it. Fry peeks through a CGI door to let them know that Klein has lead on the notebook. Fry, Leonard, Dunn, and Klein all go to the room he dreamed about in the last episode. After entering, Klein remembers delivering the notebook to this location for some unknown reason. Leonard remarks that the notebook being in such close proximity to the kidnappers must have been the reason that they lost control, and says it's too much of a coincidence. They don't find the notebook, but on a chair sits the dead corpse of a woman named Katie Bieber. Her son, Ray Bieber, is noted to be missing, so it's fair to assume that he has the antagonist's notebook. Klein is given a picture of Ray in one of his coats and attempts to divine his location. It doesn't work, as there's some kind of interference. Dunn reports this to the Holy Cathedral so they can figure out a different way to locate Ray Bieber. Fast forward, and Klein is standing outside Channis Gate, which is basically a vault. It holds specific potion formulas, beyond our materials, and the most important thing is sealed artifacts, which we'll come back to in a second. Dunn hands Klein a topaz pendulum that he can use for divination. It amplifies his communication with the spirits, leading to better divination results. I'll explain how it works when he uses it. We're updated on how the Holy Cathedral is planning to locate Ray Bieber, which is through the use of a sealed artifact. Sealed artifacts are explained as being unique beyond our items. Rated on a danger scale from 3 to 0, sealed artifacts can be potentially world-ending in terms of power. For the artifact being used in this episode, it's grade 2, meaning dangerous. Sealed artifacts are often compared to SCPs because of their unique powers, drawbacks, and that they need to be contained and used with care. The artifact gets delivered by 2 Nighthawks who are part of the Backlund Division. Dunn introduces Klein to Ire Harson, who is a Sequence 7 Nightmare, like Dunn, and Borgia, who is a Sequence 8 Gravedigger of the Corpse Collector pathway. They're also joined by Dali, who is a Sequence 7 Spirit Medium, which is the one after Sequence 8 Gravedigger. It's not really that important, but in the novel, Dali does not join them on this mission, but it's another woman who basically plays the same role. The approved artifact is 2-049, which Dunn remarks as being a risky artifact to use. Ire confirms this by saying the risk calculation was extreme risk. Despite this, they're going to use 2-049 anyways because it'll be able to find Bieber quickly as long as he's actually a descendant of the Antagonist family. 2-049 was created by the Antagonist family after all. In order to counter the negative drawback of 2-049, Klein and the others are ordered to move their arm up and down. We finally see the artifact, which is a small, jester-like puppet. Klein is attacked by the puppet, and it's shown that the puppet's power is to turn its victims into puppets themselves by slowing them down, both physically and mentally. Once under the puppet's control, a strong slap or push is enough to free someone from its spell. The big problem with using this artifact is that it can attack the user and their allies at random. The reason they have to move their arms up and down is so that the others can notice if you get slowed down and push you out of the power. Ray Bieber's coat is presented, and 2-049 immediately starts acting aggressive, which confirms that Bieber is a descendant of the Antagonist family. The Nighthawks start their mission using 2-049 to track Bieber's location. We get another intermediate lore dump, which tells us about the Secret Order. In short, the Secret Order is an ancient secret organization that was established in the Fourth Epoch, which means that it was at least over 1,000 years ago. It has ties to the Solomon Empire, and we don't know what that is yet. The Secret Order is not very active, so when they show up, it means they must be interested in something specific or looking for something that they want. Okay, back to the show, where we're shown an insane Bieber inside a warehouse. He does a digestion ritual to digest the Antagonist notebook. The ritual is interrupted, and he loses control, which turns him into an undead monster. A clown witnesses this, and through his own words we can assume that he was after the notebook as well. He rolls up his sleeve, which reveals a Secret Order symbol. Klein and the Nighthawks arrive at the warehouse, which was tracked by the sealed artifact. Dunn has Klein perform spirit pendulum divination with his newly acquired topaz pendulum. The rules on how this pendulum works are as follows. In order to connect with the spiritual intelligence for an answer, you use your astral projection, which is basically an external manifestation of the soul body, to communicate with the spirit world. You then repeat a statement 7 times in your mind. In this case, Klein says, "Danger lurks in the warehouse." Now, the pendulum will swing one of 2 directions, clockwise or counterclockwise, or will not move at all. Clockwise means yes or success, and counterclockwise means no or failure. Klein already knows how this works, so when he sees that his pendulum is swinging clockwise, he knows that there is definitely danger in the warehouse. A normally animated door opens, revealing hazy fog. The horses say bye and leave the Nighthawks behind. Dunn and the Nighthawks post up with their revolvers, and Zombie Bieber emerges from the warehouse. He immediately focuses on the artifact and starts attacking. After seeing him, Klein notes that Bieber has lost control. Dunn hands Klein a slumber charm and tells him to be careful. Charms are another topic that needs to be explained, so basically, charms are made of metals and have symbols carved into them. Their power is bestowed onto them by a higher being, such as the Evernight Goddess or other deities. This gives the charms abilities similar to that of Beyonder powers, and can be used by any holder, meaning even a seer like Klein can use a charm that has the power of a Sleepless. They have to be activated with a specific incantation, so you can't just throw them at someone. Charms also have to be renewed if too much time has passed without use, since the spirituality contained in them fades over time. Anyways, the Slumber Charm is derived from the Sleepless pathway, so the Slumber Charm has the ability to force an enemy to go to sleep. Okay, back to the fight. Dunn and Leonard attempt to use the Midnight Poem to put Zombie Bieber to sleep, and it does not work. Dunn realizes that Zombie Bieber is actually a dead soul under the notebook's influence, and asks Dolly to find its weakness. She needs 3 seconds of it sitting still for her to do this. Dunn tries a different poem, this one with the ability to pacify its target, making them lose their desire to live and turn them limp. It goes something like this. Thus it blooms on while the night is by, when day looks out with open eye. Bashed at a gaze it cannot shun, it faints and withers and is gone. The notebook counteracts this poem and it attacks Dunn, severely injuring him. Ayer and Borgia are then targeted, and Ayer tries to attack Zombie Bieber but is knocked unconscious. Dunn, who is still standing, continues attempting his poem, which he can barely even mutter anymore. Klein decides to use his slumber charm, which succeeds in putting Zombie Bieber to sleep. Dolly is able to find the weakness of Zombie Bieber, and immediately vitamin C's him, destroying the monster, but also getting injured in the process. She's helped by Dunn, who gives her a Goddess's Gaze healing potion. In Bieber's remains lies the Antagonist family's notebook. Upon picking it up, we hear the same musical motif that plays when we see the invisible feather. The clown from earlier appears and attempts to attack Klein. The clown is shot, but it's an illusion. Dunn tells the others to secure the notebook and 2-049. The clown starts dancing around and avoiding Dunn's poem. This time the poem is a tranquilizing poem, which is for purifying bodies and souls, as well as making them calm. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure why Dunn is using this on the clown, because he's not a Berserk Beyonder. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. Klein recognizes the clown from the first episode, as it was the same clown that offered him a flyer. It's revealed that the clown is at least sequence 7. We get a pretty interesting fight scene here, and it's obvious that the clown's goal is to steal the Antagonist notebook for the Secret Order. The clown is shown to have some level of precognition, as well as reading some people's movements. He can also transfer damage he's taken to other parts of his body. Leonard tries a midnight poem, but it does not work, which is like the 5th time the midnight poem has not worked in this episode. Eventually, the clown is able to use an air bullet to have 2-049 come out of its case, which ends up capturing the entire team under its spell. This was his plan the entire fight. The puppet's effects are amplified by the proximity of the Antagonist notebook, so it affects everyone in its area, except for the clown. Klein quickly tries to save himself from the puppet's control, and decides to use the gray fog to see if that will work. He struggles to mutter the incantations, but arrives at the gray fog just in time. Klein uses divination in the gray fog by saying, "Returning to the real world is very safe," and his topaz pendulum rotates clockwise, so Klein returns to his body and finds that he can move again. The clown is talking to him, and offers to wake him up in exchange for the Antagonist notebook and the name of the next sequence in the Seer pathway. Keep in mind that this is not the recipe, just the name of the next sequence. The clown also reveals himself to be a former Seer, meaning that he's sequence 7 of the Seer pathway. Leonard's shadow makes an odd motion again, showing us that he's actually conscious while all this is happening. The clown uses a stick to nudge Klein away from the puppet, but since Klein isn't actually controlled by it, he yanks it and brings the clown forward into the puppet's range, where he's severely slowed down and under the puppet's control. Klein shoots the clown in the neck and in the forehead, which kills him, and discovers that he's from the Secret Order. We get a mini jump scare and Clown mutters Hornachus 3 times before falling back down. The Nighthawks recover and Leonard approaches Klein, remarking that he was aware of everything that happened while the puppet was controlling everyone. The Nighthawks retrieve the Antagonist family's notebook. The Nighthawks return back to the Blackthorn Security Company, and the puppet is sealed back in the Chanis Gate. Dunn tells Klein that the notebook has to be verified before he can look at it. Dunn compliments Klein for his performance and says that he'll become a regular employee in no time because of this feat. Klein explains to Dunn that it's odd that Bieber would try to absorb the notebook and Tingen instead of leaving. The reason this is important is because Bieber could have attempted this at any time at any place. So he could have left Tingen and be in a more secure and safe area before attempting it. So the way things played out here is noted to be weird. Dunn chalks it up to Bieber being rash because he's under the effect of occult powers. Klein also tells Dunn that he was told the name of the sequence 8 of Seer, which is Clown. Ayer compliments Klein on his performance and asks him how he was able to manage this feat. Klein just kind of BS's his way through this by making a believable guess as to why he was able to move, even though he really knows it was because of his gray fog ability. We're shown a visual representation of Klein feeling his potions start to digest a little bit. After this, Klein decides to visit his old professor at Koi Academy. Azek Eggers is shown for the first time, and they talk about the Hornachus mountain range, as well as the Antagonist family. Klein asks Azek to write a letter to him if he finds any info about Hornachus. Azek has a very gloomy presence, and he warns Klein to be careful about forbidden areas in the darkness. After Klein leaves, Azek is shown to be a Beyonder and have a skeleton-related power. The important things to note that happen in this episode are: the Nighthawks look into the vision that Klein saw and discover a hint about the Antagonist family relating to Ray Bieber. Information about sealed artifacts, charms, and pendulum divination that I explained earlier. For some reason, the Secret Order is searching for the Antagonist family's notebook. Ray Bieber recklessly attempted to digest the Antagonist notebook and Tingen instead of fleeing first. The Nighthawks retrieve the Antagonist family's notebook. Klein visits his professor, Azek Eggers, to ask him about Hornachus and ask him to send him a letter if he finds anything. Azek Eggers is shown to be a Beyonder. The Antagonist family notebook was negligently sold by residents into the antique market. What you'll very quickly learn in these first 3 episodes is that it's fast-paced, and the Antagonist family's notebook plays a center stage role in terms of importance. This artifact is responsible for so many things that happen in the beginning of this story, but by episode 3, the Nighthawks are to retrieve it. The thing is, even though it's been secured, the Antagonist Notebook still plays a big role in the background. It relates a good amount to some characters going forward, so don't forget about it quite yet. This is just for the first 3 episodes, but I plan on making a part 2 discussing the next 3 episodes in the series. There's a lot to digest, and you definitely won't interpret everything as clearly as this was on your first watch, especially if you haven't been really paying that close attention. Of course, like I said at the beginning, a lot of the detailed information is left out for the sake of time. Klein's inner thoughts, as well as how certain things work, aren't explained nearly as long as they are in the book. It's also worth noting that a lot of events in this show are shifted around, since the anime is more of an event format, where arcs are usually resolved in 1 to 2 episodes. This is because things that are hinted at early on sometimes don't come back for tons of chapters in the book. This kind of format works pretty well for anime though, but the problem with these first 3 episodes is that they're insanely fast paced. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video, whenever that is. Maybe like a week or 2 weeks, I don't know, bro, a month. Bye.